Hello everyone, it's Karen here from Karen's Creation Scrapbooking in Wyerton. This week at the store, you can come in and make this really cute birthday wishes card. I used the peony stamp die and stencil set from Pink Fresh Studios and another stencil from Vicky Booten and the embossing glaze, distress embossing glaze. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I put this together. I'll just set it aside here, maybe in the view. So for the background here, I just have some old photo paper. It's glossy. Okay, so I am going to get a piece of paper and just set it down. And I have this embossing dabber. And I'm just going to run the dabber across my paper, no particular order. And then I'm going to put some embossing powder on the card. I'm just going to sprinkle it because it goes a long way, right, when you put it on. So I think my card, the blue and the green got mixed up together. So I have cracked pistachio and that one was broken china. And then I have a yellow. Fossilized amber. Probably should have used a spoon, would have been easier. So, you know, no two are going to look alike because you're just creating a mishmash here. I'm just going to put it back on. Tap it at the back just to kind of move it all over. I'm going to put a little bit more on of the green. So I'm just going to take the jar and sprinkle it on. Okay, and then I'm going to heat it with a heat gun. So it's going to be a little loud. So you don't want to burn it, and you'll see quite quickly that it doesn't take long to melt. So there it is melting. So there, my paper just kind of buckled up because it is glossy paper, coated glossy paper. but that's okay. Sorry, I had to run and get my stencil. So I used this Vicky Bouton stencil. It's from the Fernwood collection. And I'm going to use the turquoise stencil butter. So I'm just going to cover that with my stencil butter, okay? Now I could tape that down. I'm just going to put this paper down first, and I'm going to tape it down so it doesn't move. And I'm going to use my magnet board to hold it. Okay. So I'm just going to take my stencil butter and the palette knife, and I'm going to load the stencil butter on the back of the knife, okay? And then I'm going to spread it. This is almost thick. So I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna fill all the holes. I'm just kind of gonna go in a circular motion here around the left side and down to the bottom. Just to give it some kind of texture and to hide that mark there that I made. Okay. So I could heat this too. I can just let it dry. So I'm gonna let it dry, take the stencil off, I'm gonna let it dry, and I'm gonna do the flowers to the rest of the card to show you how I colored them in. But I just gotta run to the sink and put this in the sink. Okay, so yeah, that looks really pretty, and it hid the bottom, right? So yeah, sorry about that. I should have had that prepared. My hand got full of stencil butter, so I had to wipe it off. Okay, so I'm just gonna lift that up. Ready? And I'm gonna set that aside for a minute and try not to touch it. And we'll see how long it takes to dry, because if it's not dry by the time we have to color or glue our other pieces down, then we'll just heat it. Okay, so I'm just gonna tape these down on my magnet board here. And we have these stencils that go over top of the design. So they have a label at the top that says stencil 1, and I'm just gonna put it over top where we want our color. And I'm going to use, let's see this color. I'm going to use cracked pistachio first. And I'm just going to go lightly. I'm using a stencil brush. You could use your dauber or the sponge tool, right? If you wanted. I kind of got off kilter there. Okay, so that's 1. And 2. A little darker there. So these stencils there's 3 different layers, or 4 different layers. So I'm using cracked pistachio first, and then I'm going to go in with a little peacock feathers for the dark places. I'm just going to go back over this again. Okay. This is the next stencil that has some darker highlights. And we're going to use cracked pistachio or peacock feathers. And I'm just going to use the same brush because it's just a little bit darker of a color. Now I've used this stamp set in a card before, and it does look very pretty when you layer them all together. So it's just a subtle look with the flower. Okay, and the center is yellow. And I'm going to use mustard seed. Get those little dots in there. Okay, and now I'm going to use Rustic Wilderness. Now my brush usually has what do you call it? My brush usually has the green. What's it called? Peeled paint. I usually have peeled paint on this brush, so I'm not going to use a whole lot of Rustic Wilderness because it is fairly dark. I'm just rubbing it off camera there on a piece of paper. It is fairly dark, that Rustic Wilderness, so we don't want to make it too dark because we want to have 2 layers. So the first time we're going to just do a light touch with the green because we have 2 stencils with the leaves. And I picked the one that the leaf was cut off, but that's okay. We're gonna cut them apart anyways. Let's see, now this one's a little bit darker than my original. Okay, so the next stencil is going to be even darker. So we're going to want to put more pressure on the brush and pick up a little bit more of the color from the ink pad. And that's how you get your layered effect. Okay, so the flowers are all done. We can start layering the paper. Oop, yeah, see, it's a little bit wet still, so I'm just gonna try and heat it a little bit and it'll dry. And it does puff up a little bit if you when you dry it. And you just let it air dry, it's flat, but if you heat it, it puffs up. Okay, so I'm just gonna cool that. I'm going to flip this over so that I don't have any stickiness on there. Okay, so I'm gonna glue my border down. Yep. That's good. I'm gonna glue that down. And I'm gonna glue this down on top of that, a little frame there. My glue's kind of run out. Of course, right? Right in the middle of a frame, my glue runs out. There we go. Okay, so I'll stick that in the center. So here's our original. So now all I'm going to do is cut these apart. And I cut it by the leaf. And I'm gonna cut this one off. And this guy off. So I'm going to glue one layer down first. I probably should have my wet glue here. This card is just a little bit shorter, just to save on the paper to get 4 out of the sheet instead of 2. Okay, so I'm just gonna put that there just so I know where it is. And I'm just gonna cut this. Don't really remember what I did, but it is gonna work out. So this guy was down at the bottom. This guy was probably here. It looks like. I cut this one off. And I cut the leaf out. So I could use foam squares to pop it up and stick it down. Just whatever design you want. And again, so I'm going to cut this leaf apart. Now this one, it got cut off. So I'm just gonna make a new leaf. So this one here, I cut it apart and cut this one off. And I'm just gonna pop dot that off of there. And then this one here is going to go at the top. Just underneath. Oh, I cut that one off. So just underneath the big one there. Okay. And this flower goes kind of in behind. And this little flower just gets stuck down here. Just layer it, you know, put your glue there. This one's above a little more. And then this flower just goes underneath. So you can layer it and fool around with it, okay? Glue it down, pop it up. Gives it a little dimension. So I wanted to show you some of these little, from the Creative Expressions, these little dies. What I do when I put it through the machine, this is gold cardstock, right? It's pretty thick. So what I do when I put it through the machine is I put a piece of white cardstock behind, and it really just pops right apart. All the little bits come off. Okay. It's pretty slick. And so all I did was cut the belated off with some scissors, and I'm going to glue it down onto the cardstock rectangle there. Okay, so that's how I made the card. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Take care and have a great day.